Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina wa habibina wa shafi'ina wa nuri qulubina wa qurrati a'yunina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Nawayna ta'alluma wa ta'lim wa tadhakkura wa tazkir wa nafa' wal intifa' wal ifada wal istifada wal hatha ala tamassuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulih صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني وشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي الهاني يا وهاب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين 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 يا رب العالمين. آمين. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We're continuing with our book from the book Minhaj al-Abidin ila Jannati Rabbil Alameen للإمام المجدد حفظ الإسلام والمسلمين زين الدين أبي حامد محمد بن أحمد الغزالي الطوسي الطبراني الشافعي رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله به وبعلومه في الدارين. From the book The Path of the Worshipful Servant to the Gardens of the Lord of the Worlds by the great Imam, the renewal of the faith, the proof of the religion and of the Muslims, the beauty of this religion, or the adornment of this religion, the father of Hamid Muhammad bin Ahmad al-Ghazali al-Tusi al-Tabarani al-Shafi'i. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him and benefit us by him in both abodes, inshallah. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. Okay, so we're continuing the sixth hurdle then, which is the hurdle of impairments, right? So impairments, like what would destroy our acts of worship, which leaves us with one last hurdle, the seventh hurdle, which is the hurdle of gratitude, right? Because that is the final hurdle that keeps you that actually keeps you on the path. And when you learn to be grateful, you will learn to stay on the path. It is only when and all of sin boils back down to being ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of disobedience, all of any negative behavior, it all goes back to a lack of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It all goes back to one thing. Right? So, and that is a hurdle that so many people cannot surmount, right? And cannot understand and cannot establish in their life. Inshallah, mashallah. Right, so mashallah. Right, so if anyone has a book, right, we are on the or if you're on the black book, right, the black book is on page 253, right? If you're on the white book, I don't know what page you're on, right? But I think on the white book, you're kind of on the page. So I don't know what's on the white book, right? If you're on the white book, it's another page, right? But if on the black book, it's on page 243. Okay, subsection. So he says, after all that has been said above, you must wake up from your slumber, O man, on this hurdle. If not, you will be amongst the losers. For this is the toughest, hardest, harshest, and most bruising hurdle that has confronted you on this path. It is a culmination of all the previous hurdles. So, if you surmount it safely, you will gain great benefit and you will gain great benefit and profit. If the opposite is the case, all effort has been made to no avail, hope has been dashed, and life has been wasted, mashallah. Right? So he puts it to this extent. And what is this hurdle? The hurdle of the impairments, which is basically the destroyers of good deeds, which is ostentation, which is ujub, right? Ujub is conceit, right? Self-conceit or self-pride, and it is riya. Riya is to show off, right? Basically ostentation or to show off, right? So and he says here, Just to go back to what he said, because he says that, you must wake up from your slumber. Don't think that you are free of this hurdle. I don't ever let shaitan, because shaitan, this was the thing that really hit him, right? The thing about Riya and Ujub. He had it deeply embedded in himself, and he could not save himself from these diseases that lie at the core of himself, right? Because if you look at it, right, shaitan, with regards to knowledge, the first hurdle is the law of knowledge. Shaitan has hurdle. He has gone through that hurdle of knowledge. He knows a lot, shaitan. He's very, 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 experienced, being alive since before Nabi Adam alayhi salam, and staying alive till after, till the day of judgment. Then the second hurdle of tawbah, okay, the one he failed lah. Right, he has one thing to tawbah from, and he doesn't want to do it. Right, he can't, and that is because he can't get over himself. Right, so it all comes together eventually. Right, the third hurdle, there's no dunya for shaitan, and there's no people for shaitan, and there's no shaitan for shaitan. Right, the third hurdle, right? So what does he have for himself? His nafs, right? And his nafs is very deeply connected to the ostentation and to the showing off and pride in the self. Right. And the fourth hurdle, shaitan couldn't care less, right? About rizki, about fears, about worries, about the qadr decree and so on. Right. It's not, in the issue of shaitan. Right. He's not, gonna bother himself of all of this. Right. The fifth hurdle, motivation. He's highly motivated to bring everybody to hellfire. I mean, you have to give him that lah. He has this unwavering motivation. And this is the ugliness of shaitan. His spite is so immense that he's gonna spend his entire lifetime just to bring people to the hellfire because he just hates them. And he hates human beings. Right? I mean, how deep can spite get? And you really hate someone so much. I mean, he hated Nabi Adam alayhi salam. Then his hate, stretched on to all human beings, and then he just dedicated his entire life doing this. So the case of shaitan is a very curious case, right? Like really you wonder, in a sense, there is a form of stupidity, right? If with regards to shaitan, like would you really go to that extent because of so much hatred? And it's why some human beings, if you spend so many years hating someone, like really, like what a waste of life, kan? Right? I'm gonna put so much effort, so much energy, so much emotion, and then whenever you see them at any function or any wedding, and you're gonna go through all this negativity and you're going through all this hatred or whatever, like it is stupidity. It's flat out stupidity. Like if you can be happy. Like why? But Shaitan, the thing about shaitan, he's angry. He's just angry all the time. And he just wants to destroy people. It's like this is why like holding on to negative emotion is like it's shaitanic lah. Right? That you just don't want to let go and just don't want to move on and choose to just let life just live life. Whatever it is, Jannah is our goal, right? So whatever gets me to Jannah, alhamdulillah. Anything in between is really just something in between. Right? It's like a rock, rock on the road, you go past it. You're not gonna be focused on that rock, but you're gonna be focused on the palace that you're headed to. Right. So subhanAllah. Right. So the case of shaitan, like he's a very curious case. And then now on this situation is where shaitan collapses, right? With the case of envy and with the case of conceit, right? Self pride, right? And showing off. Right. So he had showing off right from the very beginning of his worship, and only Allah was aware of that. Right. And then astaghfirullahalazim. Right. And then with regards to his to his self pride, right, that continued, right, that was already embedded in him very strongly, and he could not get over himself with regards to Nabi Adam alayhi salam. Right, why must Allah teach Adam the names, and why must Allah honor Adam, and why must Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor human beings, right, and all these issues, which actually does go into the issue of not accepting the decree. So he is obsessed with the decree. Right. So whether Allah honored you or honored someone else, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Whoever Allah wants to honor, Allah honors. And so all that's on you is to worship Allah, to obey Allah. So that's where Iblis, he missed the point. Right? He missed it. Right? So he's all obsessed, with Allah honoring Nabi Adam alayhi salam, right? But then he just missed the entire point, right? Of him, he missed the whole point, of worshiping Allah and obeying Allah as He is, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why he says that, oh man, wake up from this. No one is free of this, except for the prophets. Prophets are free of this. Prophets you won't find a single prophet in the history of mankind, right, that ever struggled with, in fact, any one of these hurdles. Not a single prophet, right? It's because they're already for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all prophets don't have issues with any of the 7 hurdles. And these hurdles are all on us normal people, or us common people. And so prophets, like knowledge, they are given knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawbah, they are continuously on tawbah. What stops them from worship people? They couldn't care less. I mean, they're prophets. They cannot care less. I mean, they cannot care what people say about them. With regards to dunya, they have no concern for dunya. With regards to shaitan's afraid of them, right? And then with regards to the self, they have conquered themselves and the self is submissive to them. And with regards to the fourth hurdle of distractions, prophets they don't look at all to these distractions, right? They have no concern about their where the rizki comes from, it comes. They have no concern about, any worries or fears, right? There is no, I mean, they're not affected by a decree. I mean, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, coming with no father, no mother, no grandfather, and so on. The things that afflict him in his life in the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of this is, has stopped him from worship. And then the fifth hurdle, that what drives them, right? They have the highest hope and the highest fear, right? Both sides, they have the highest. And then now on this side, they have zero ostentation and zero riyah, did zero showing off, zero self-conceit and so on, right? And of course, the last hurdle of shukr, right? The prophets, they have the highest shukr, right? So mashallah. So all these 7 hurdles, prophets are free of lah, right? They're all free of 7 hurdles, mashallah. But we are all struggling, and so he says that be awake about this hurdle, right? Don't think that you are safe from this, right? So because if you are complacent about this, you will be a loser, right? Because this hurdle is the toughest, hardest, harshest, and most bruising hurdle that has confronted you on this path, and shaitan uses this a lot because he fell flat on his face by it. Right? So he flings it at people, right, to destroy them and destroy their worship. And as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that arrogance, it is as slight, it is as slight as a black ant on a black rock in the darkness of the night, right? So like, who could see it? And that is how slight arrogance is, right? So, and then the companions, alhamdulillah, may Allah reward them on our behalf, asked the Prophet sallallahu ya Rasulullah, then how do we protect ourselves from it? How do we free ourselves from it? And he says, recite every morning and every evening, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika shay'an a'lamu wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lam. It's a very famous dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika shay'an a'lamu wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lam. You can make it a habit to read after your prayers, after Subh and after Maghrib, or after all of your prayers, right? So that you get protected from the diseases of the heart, especially that of arrogance, of self-pride, of showing off, and so on. And all of these things they're all under the statement of arrogance. Right? Right? It is a culmination of all previous hurdles. Right? It is a culmination, right? Because with self-pride and showing off, it shows a lack of knowledge. And self-pride and showing off, it shows no tawbah. Right? Because if you were to really repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, you would see all the flaws in all that you do. Right? So there is no showing off and there's no self-pride. Right? If self-pride is showing off, right, you wouldn't care about the people and shaitan, and and all these things. Are because someone has self-pride and they're showing off, that they are worried what the people might say, people might think. They want the dunya, right? The showing off part is basically the dunya, right? And then with shaitan, the whispers of shaitan are in showing off or having pride in oneself. And the self is the nafs lah. The self itself is a nafs, right? And then and so on, right? So it is a culmination of all the previous hurdles. So if you surmount it safely, right? If you get rid of self-pride and you get rid of showing off in your heart, right, then you will gain great benefit, right, from this from going on this, from getting over this hurdle, and profit. If the opposite is the case, that means if you are consumed by this hurdle, right, if you are consumed by self-pride and showing off, right, the diseases of the heart, and the two main diseases of the heart that Imam Ghazali cautions us about, if the opposite is the case, all effort has been to no avail. It means all the effort that you have put in is of no use. They are all useless. Hope has been dashed, and your life has been wasted. Hope of what? Hope of Jannah. And that is the hope. And the hope of Jannah is what is being meant here. Hope has been dashed, and your life has been wasted. Everything hinges on the fact that three things are combined in this hurdle. Three things. First one, the problem is a very subtle matter, right? And to have pride, right, and to want to show off is something very subtle. You convince yourself you're doing it sincerely. You convince yourself you are, it's all for da'wah, for example. You convince yourself it's all for, to call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it is very, very subtle, right? So Shaitan, who was afflicted by this, right, he was praying the entire time, right? Every handspan on this earth, he was performing sujood, right? So like he did not, suspect at all, right, that he had this, riya and ujub, right? His self-pride and his showing off, right? Until Allah exposed it. But unlike, Shaitan, right, there was a man, story of the man, and the man who would pray in the first saf. We mentioned the story, right? So this man, he would come to the masjid every day, right? And he would pray in the first saf, right? And one day he came late, and the first saf was already filled up. In fact, there were a few safs already filled up, right? And he could not bring himself to pray in a saf that was behind. So he turned around and he walked home, right? He left the Jama'ah. Right? So when he reached home and he prayed at home, it occurred to him, why did he do that? Like, why did he turn away from the Jama'ah and leave the Jama'ah? Right? And it occurred to him that all these years that he prayed in the first saf, right, he was doing it out of showing off. Right? That was the only reason why he turned away. Because what's the difference between the first or the third saf? It's still Jama'ah. Right, get in and pray, right? Go in masbuq and pray, right? But he could not, because to him his station, right, or he's known for the man in the first saf, right? He's known for that. That is his name, right? So to pray in the third saf is humiliating on him. Right, so that showed. So Allah actually exposed to the man. The man was not aware that he had all these years. Right, so Allah exposed to the man that all these years he prayed in the first saf. It was just to show off to those around him, inshallah. Right, and then Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Now, right, and then so the man, when he realized this, right, he actually went to qada all of his prayers. Right, because he counted that all those prayers were prayers of showing off, right? Not really prayers truly for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prayers to show off, right? So he went to qada, right, all those prayers, right, because out of fear. And of course, mashallah, he took the other way. Shaitan was exposed, right, when Nabi Adam was on it, right, but he could not handle it, right, and he disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This man was exposed, right, and he could handle it. Right, and he in fact made tawbah, and he qada all those prayers. All right, so everything hinges on the fact that three things are mentioned. So it is very subtle. The risk of error is serious, right? Meaning that to not realize you actually have a vain conceits, right? Which is, pride, right? Or to have to want to show off to others, to not realize that the error is serious, danger is enormous. As for the subtle nature of the problem, the channels through which deeds are infiltrated by ostentation and vain conceit are extremely subtle and concealed. Hardly anyone is alert to that process except those who are adept in the sphere of religion, keenly perceptive, wakeful at heart, and prudently cautious. How can it be detected by the stupid ignoramus and the heedless addict of sleep? Inshallah. Right. So it says that you need someone to teach you lah, to show you, right? There is ostentation here, right? There is pride here, right? There is showing off here, and it's in this kind of things that is very hard to accept. Can you imagine someone coming up to you and say that, actually, I think you're quite proud, right? I mean, straight away we're like, what's it? Like, then we get offended, right? Or if someone says, you're such a big show off. And then you're like, I mean, so how many of us actually accept it? If someone said it to you in your face, you're like, no, like they don't know why I did it, they don't know my intentions, they don't know. Like, so we begin to go very, very quickly on like saying that to nullify their statement, mashallah. So it is something that is hard. It's a very bitter thing to hear lah, right? So I can't imagine, like, if someone even says the word arrogant to you, or someone says the word proud to you, or someone says the word, show off to you. Right? It's all hard words, right, to handle. Right. So he says here in Nishapur, I heard the following accounts from one of our scholars. May Allah bestow His mercy upon him. Ata' as-Sulami, may Allah bestow His mercy and His good pleasure upon him, wove a garment, tailored it to perfection, and made it beautiful. Then he took it to the market and put it on display. But the draper offered a cheap price, saying, "He has so many flaws. Look here and here and here and here and here." Right, so Ata took it back and said, weeping bitterly. The man felt sorry and became apologetic and offered him the price he wanted. So Ata said to him, "The problem was not as you suppose. I work at this craft of weaving, and I tried hard to perfect this garment, to improve it and make it beautiful, so that it would be flawless. Then, when it was displayed to someone able to detect its flaws, he showed me flaws that I had failed to notice." I said, so why? So this entire story, right? It's a very famous story that they always quote in Sufism, right, in Tasawwuf, right? Whereas, to this man, I thought, right, he made a garment and that he thought was all perfect, right? So he tried his very best. He tried his very best to make it as perfect as possible. He brought it to an expert to sell it, right? This is an expert tailor who sells like the finest garments. So this expert tailor, when he saw this garment made by Allah, right, he said, I'm going to give you a very low price for this. Look at all the flaws. And he began to point out all the flaws on the garment. Right. So of course Atta began to cry, but his crying is not because of the garment nor of the price. Right. But he was reflecting. And he was thinking, how is it that we prepare our heart, we prepare our soul, we prepare our deeds, and we think it's good and it's perfect, and we think, we prepare, right? And if you bring it up to an expert who sees everything, and as you bring it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what if, the Quran that I recite, Allah points and Allah points and Allah points to all of the problems and the flaws in my Quran, or my salah that I think I'm doing well, or my hijab, or my whatever act of worship that I think I've like gotten it proper, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, points it all out to me. Same thing like with Quran. Right? Quran, you might think that you recite, pretty well, or you think that you recite okay lah, your recitation. But when you read in front of an expert, right, they won't even pass your Fatiha. Right? Even your basmalah not passed. Even your a'udhu billah is not passed. Right? They will keep getting it down on the a'udhu billah, a'udhu billah, a'udhu. Right? You keep doing it over and over again. And you're like, all these years, I thought my Quran was okay. You see from an expert, and the expert's like, nope, 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 nope. Like the whole thing is subhanAllah. So he was crying because he was reflecting. I was reflecting how we think that our deeds are without any blemish of showing off, or how we think our deeds are without any blemish of arrogance, or how we think our deeds are without any blemish of self pride. right? And Allah shows us it's right here at this point, someone said this and you became proud, and then you said this and then you became proud, and then you didn't realize it, and then it was, but Allah knows it, mashallah. Right? It's like the man who was reciting the Quran, sorry, the man who was reading the Quran, and then when he heard it was in Ramadan, and then while he was reciting the Quran, he heard the man going, there was a man who was waking up everyone for sahur. So that in that time, it was in Syria, right? So he was holding a pan, a pot, and he was striking the pot and waking everybody up for sahur, sahur. Right. So when he heard that guy going past his house, this man who was reciting the Quran, he raised his voice in recitation. Right. And he did that just to show the guy outside that I'm awake and I'm reciting Quran. Look at me. I saw that one page that he recited with his voice out loud, and it was one page. He raised his voice to let the guy outside know he's reciting. Right. So it was that he fell asleep thereafter. It was before Fajr, he fell asleep. And he saw the day of judgment happen. And he was given his book of deeds, and he was flipping, 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 and he came to the day, that the particular day whereby he was reading Quran, right? And then all the words of the Quran were recorded with all the rewards next to every word, right? All were recorded. And then he was flipping and flipping and flipping, and he came to an empty page, and there was nothing there. Right. And then we have your has 10, subhanAllah. So it's like no one think about it. Right. And he was like, where's this page? Why is it empty? Right. And the angel said, remember, for this page, you raise your voice for the guy outside to hear you. Mashallah, you raise your voice for the guy outside to hear you. So you get 0. It's 0 for you. Mashallah. I said that he woke up, it was a lesson for him. He woke up and he was so, repentive, of what he did. So slight, just a raise in the voice, right? Just to get someone to hear you. Why? What's the reason? Right? There was a showing off, right? There was a showing off. Like someone could convince themselves that, their voice is raised because, just because, right? Or because the drums were outside or something or whatever, right? But Allah knows the true reason why that happened, right? So that's why, like, this world of the social media, it is very scary because you really don't know what you are posting. Is it truly for the sake of Islam? Is there any hints of, eh, and what you see also, right? And then you feel something and whatever. It is that I think what you see also, it affects you. I get so affected by what I see. Sometimes I just is the one to like I'm off social media already, alhamdulillah, for so long. Right? But previously, like, just to scroll and to see, and you start unfollowing people, unfollowing people, unfollowing people, because you don't want to see what they're putting up, and really, like I don't know lah. I have no I have no attraction to anyone who keeps posting themselves. Why do people get attracted to people who keep posting themselves? Right, and you keep putting different pictures of you, like different angles of different pictures of you, right? Like Allahu Alam, I'm just like Allahu Alam, Allahu Alam. And of course, Allah is the final judge, and Alhamdulillah, Allah is the final judge, and also it is terrifying. Allah is the final judge, right? Because you can't fake it in front of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. He knows exactly like what is your issue, right? So Naam. So naam. Right. So what does this say about our these deeds of ours when they are displayed tomorrow at resurrection to Allah? How many flaws and defects of which we are heedless today will become apparent in them then? How? Right? We are told that one of the righteous said, one night at a time before dawn, I was in the room next to the main street. Yeah, the story is here, right? The story is right here. Okay, I one at a time before dawn, I was in the room next to the main street, reciting the Quranic surah and the Taha. As soon as I had concluded recitation, I fell into doze, and I saw a figure descend from the sky, holding a copy of the Quran in his hand. He spread it out in front of me, and there was Surah Taha. 10 merits were recorded under each word of the text, with the exception of one word. Right? The blank space had been substituted for that word. and I saw nothing underneath it. I said, by Allah, I recited this word, but I see no reward for it. I do not see it inscribed. The figures is similar story. Figures it. You told it said you told us the truth. You did recite it, and we inscribed it. But we heard a crier calling from the direction of the heavenly throne, erase it and drop its reward. So we erased it. I wept in my sleep, and I said, why did you do that? And he replied, a man passed by during recitation, so you raise your voice to impress him, and away went the reward for reciting that word. Similar story, similar story. Because always happened a few times, right? So that, the one I heard was from I think Sharon Bhuti or someone, right? Or from Habib Omar, one of them, right? It happened in Syria. Right? So different story, but similar. You might find a few different narrations, or similar story. But it should you raise your voice to show off to someone. Right. So as for the seriousness, sometimes there's a very fine line between wanting to encourage people and ending up showing off to other people. Right. So sometimes, and this is how Shaitan plays with us. He convinces us we're trying to do da'wah and trying to encourage. Right. So we show, of what we do, in our family, of our kids, our deeds, and so on. Right. And then it's very fine. Like, is it really da'wah? Or is there a showing off going on? Right. So we don't know. We just don't know. So it's very, so Imam Ghazali says, be aware, right? Be vigilant, right? You don't know, right, about this. Number two, as for the seriousness of the risk of error, ostentation. Right, question here. How do we get rid of the tiny feeling? Which tiny feeling? Tiny feeling of showing off. If you feel that there's a feeling of showing off, then you need to stop doing what you're doing. Right? To get rid of the tiny feeling, if you feel in your heart that you feel like you're showing off, then you need to stop doing it in public. Right? Because showing off happens in public. So if that tiny feeling comes to your heart, then you need to step back, right, from the public sphere, right, and do it private. Let's do it private. Right. That is the best way against showing off. Right. To actually don't allow your nerves to expose itself publicly. That's the biggest, that's the best way. So if you are feeling that tiny feeling of showing off, that means it's there lah. There is that feeling of showing off. Right. If you say that there's a fear, I don't feel it, but there's a fear. You fear that you're showing off, right? Then recite Surah Ikhlas. I recite Surah Ikhlas in abundance. I try and make it as sincere as possible. There is a like you say, a prescription to Surah Ikhlas about 1,000 times if you can, 100 times, or however times you want. I to do Surah Ikhlas if there's a fear of showing off, right? Before you do a good deed. But then again, if you can do it anonymously, right, that is better and that is closer to sincerity. And that is why sunnah prayers, if as far as you can, do it in the privacy of the home, right? So you don't show off in front of other people, right? Sunnah prayers, right? So fardu prayers, you do it at the masjid. And so even for subuh, right, it is sunnah to pray sunnah prayers at home and then go to the masjid for subuh. But of course, in between, in Tari, in between, they will read Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah Azimi, Subhanallahil Azimi. I'm missing up. Subhanallah bihamdi, Subhanallah Azim, Astaghfirullah, Subhanallah bihamdi, Subhanallah Azim, Astaghfirullah. In between, right? So there's quite a gap between the sunnah and the fardu prayers, and then they all live near the mosque, right? So they all just they just walk to the mosque, right? So they actually to the point they do sunnah prayers or subuh at home, and they don't do it at the mosque, right? So even for like Zohor, Asar, is for like Isha, right? So Isha prayers, if you can do your witr at home, right? If you can, like I know for some of us, if if I say I'm doing at home, I won't be doing it. I go my sleep. Right. So if there's a situation, then you just pray there, lah, right? If that is better for you, right? But if you can, if you have that kind of control over your nafsu, I can pray at home is better, and that is closer to being sincere, right, as far as you can. With regards to what do you call it? I don't understand people who quote themselves. You know, when they put quotes up and they quote themselves. There are people who actually quote themselves. Poster statement, and they put their name there. Yeah, they're alive. Yeah, there are people like people who actually quote themselves. I've seen a few times. Right, this the person posted up something and they quoted themselves. No, they did it and they quoted themselves. And there was once I saw someone quoting herself. She put the statement there, and she put her name there. The statement is a hadith. I would la how I saw it online, right? On that person's side page. The is a statement, is a hadith, that is a hadith. And they put that she puts her name instead of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said by the Prophet. Right? Would you say, the religion is good counsel, Fahana Munshi. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That is a hadith, ad-dinu nasiha. Ad-dinu nasiha. I wouldn't dare. It's not my words. It's the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I was so shocked when I saw it. Like, I was like, this is hadith. This is hadith. You don't take, like, you won't take Quran and put your name under there. You wouldn't dare. Like, you would not dare. This is Quran. Like, if it's a hadith, don't you dare put your name. That is like to the extent of ostentation, but it's a lie. It's not even done by you. And you claim credit for yourself. I was so appalled, right, by that. Pages, they are read by the students. So the student quoted the teacher in that. At the same time, the teacher should check. Yeah, the student check. Right, because if these pages are run by your students, right, it's still your name, and you must check, right? So especially if it's at the heading, right on top, it's not something like hidden somewhere. It's right on top at the heading. Right. So if it's run by a student, you have the responsibility of checking. That's why I'm going so slowly through what Baba says. That's the responsibility of really checking the contents to be correct, right? And not to misquote, because sometimes she quotes hadith, right? So I don't want that it be quoted that she said it, right? But she's quoting a hadith, right? So that kind of thing, right? So and sometimes she's not quoting hadith; it's just a story, right? So you don't call it a hadith. I just say that it's just a story that is narrated, and that kind of thing. I mean, very, very clear if your son, but so I saw my own eyes, right, online, right? And I know the page is run by the individual, right? It's run by the individual. So it is hadith. It is hadith. It's not the person's statement, right? So I don't know, but I do wonder lah, why do people quote themselves? I mean, if you think you said something so wise and so quote worthy, right? I mean, if you truly think so, put lah anonymous, right? Or put someone said, like someone I know said. This is, I guess, and there is a clear sign of showing off. A clear sign of pride. Like that if you need to have your name there, do you have to have your name there? Subhanallah. Like sometimes I make a poster and I want to put some of the Ustad's names there. I have to fight tooth and nail to get the name down. I have to convince them, can I put your name? Can I put your name? Don't put my name. Don't put my cousin now. Don't put my name. Don't put my name. And then I was like, it's credibility. Come on, people look at who's the Ustad teaching. It's credibility. Then she was like, just put your name, good enough lah. And then I was like, put lah to name. Like, at least I'm not alone there. I have to get for me, I only put my name there for events because I know people check like who's conducting it. It matters to people. For me also, if it's a talk, I see who's the speaker. I check with the speaker first, right? So I mean, I know lah, we all do it, right? So because it does go back to credibility, and then also methodology, and also it just the style, right? So that's how people go for. So I'm still haven't posted out one of my posters right now that I'm planning, right, for the coming of age for girls for puberty. I'm doing a poster for that one, because waiting for green light from the other ustazah. No, she's asking her husband. It's good. And that's a good wife. That's a good wife. Before you put your name up, like for me, I always forward the post to my husband. FYI. No, 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 no. I inform him first, like, ask her permission first. But she's like, she already asked her husband, waiting for the green light. So I'm waiting for tonight till he comes back from I don't know where, then like to get the green light. Then I can publicize. And then you wonder why I'm there so late, because trying to get these ustazahs to put their name down. I'm planning on the 20th of November. Yes, it's the first weekend of um holiday. Yes, Sunday, it's a Sunday. Morning, Sunday morning. Yeah, Sunday morning, right? Me and Ustazah Mardia, right? We're doing a workshop, right? For it's called Coming of Age, right? For girls facing puberty from ages 9. Ages 9. Because by the time I come back, she should. By the time she come back, I come back, she might have already the from 9 to 13. 9 to 13. I'm looking at 9 to 13. Ah?
Dah kena tahu tau.
Right? 8 to baby lah. No, it's not 19th. It's on the 20th. Yeah. Mujahid. It's under Mujahid. It is under Mujahid. Yes, under Mujahid. So Mujahid asked me to use their premises lah. Okay lah. Panas-panas lah. Maybe we might be in the container. Right. So it will be online. It will be online. Inshallah, I'll put it up on YouTube. Just the slides and my voices lah. Right, the slides and our voices, we put it up on YouTube. Right, we'll be going through the different parts of puberty. Right, from the first stage. We have stories also. There's actually a very beautiful story. I will tell them because on the daylight itself of a young Sahabiya who actually got her first menses in front of the Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You talk about embarrassing, eh? It's a young girl. She was actually I think on a camel or something. And then she was talking to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then she got, she was together with Rasulullah on the camel. She was pre-puberty. Then when she got off, it was all stained. Oh, the story about it. All right, so if you think about it, it only happens in our time. No. First time she got it was in front of the Prophet. So of course, he guided her on it. And then he passed it to Aisha to further guide her about it. Right, mashallah. But really, like real stories, a lot of real stories of this issue. You think that we are the only ones who go through it? No. Women have been going through this. You say the entire blessing. I want to call it ordeal or trial, but blessing of menses that Allah has given the daughters of Adam. Nabi Muhammad said in that way that menstruation is something that Allah has written on the daughters of Adam. And it's something that Allah wrote for us. It's something we embrace. And something that we take it lah. So in positivity lah, that we have it. So we will be explaining, of course, the fiqh rulings and everything. Like I'm going off topic, but then like basically you're talking about that. And so inshallah, like fiqh rulings and the bath and after that, even more into the rings of with Quran and masjid and what can you do, that kind of thing. And then and then the hygiene and so on lah, like all of the rulings around it lah. And then of course the spiritual side, of being disconnected from ibadah and what you can do and trying to put in extra effort, right, in that period to do more ibadah in the form of service lah. Like usually for me, I find that service is the main thing, right, that I will go for and do. Right, so like any sewing to be done, I will sew. Any washing to be done, I'll wash. Like any service in the house, since you're free, kind of, right? Especially Ramadan, you're very free. Everybody go to Tarawih, you're like, okay lah, wash all the dishes lah. And then you might as well, right? Because you're not going anywhere. Right. So mashallah. Right, so we will go through all of that lah. The poster is coming out. Just waiting for the green light from the other ustazah. Huh? Yeah, review her name. No, she's memang part of it. It's just that don't want to put on the poster. Don't want to put on the. Actually, she said no. Don't want to put on the poster. After that, I tried convincing her, and then she said, "Okay, ask husband." So there are some people you have to fight tooth and nail. You have to fight tooth and nail just to get their names out somewhere. Because they're so they don't want to be in the limelight at all. They don't want. They do a lot of work, mashallah, behind closed doors, mashallah, but they don't want any limelight whatsoever. mashallah. And then there are people who put themselves in limelight, and even put their names in the place of Rasulullah's name, which is la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I don't know how anyone could ever do that. Right? If it's not your code, don't you dare. Right? And even if it's a rephrased quote from the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, put lah rephrase from the Prophet. Can don't claim it to be yours. Right. So that's like these are all intellectual copyright. It is. Right, it belongs to the Prophet. As long so you can't claim it for yourself, but it does show a very strong pride, right? What the name needs to be exalted, the name needs to be seen. I must show the name, right? It's just la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That's why Imam Ghazali speaks about that. Right, so this is the seriousness of this matter. Right, so he says, as for the seriousness of the risk of error, ostentation and vain conceit. Right, ujub and riya are a terrible affliction which can strike in a twinkling of an eye and may ruin your worship of 70 years. Right. You just, subhanAllah. Yeah, like for shaitan, it was thousands of years gone, right, in the exposure. MashaAllah. But walik. MashaAllah. Right, it is, yeah, she likes you already. This is the cat mom. MashaAllah. Right. It is related that a man once entertained Sufyan al-Thawri, may Allah bestow his mercy upon him, and his companions. So he said to his family, fetch the platter. Oh, is that all Habib Umar stories? Whenever I come among these books, I'll find I've heard the story before, because Habib has read the story before. Right, so mashallah. I mean, sometimes the kids ask me, where you get all the stories? And I say, Habib Umar lah. Who else, right, tells all these stories? Right, and then, like, if I were to ask Habib, where you get your stories? Imam Ghazali lah. I mean, if I were to ask him lah. I mean, because right now it's all here. Huh? Yeah, he had classes, mashallah. It's like a story of the story of the story, mashallah. It's amazing class, mashallah. I fetched a platter, right? And he said, not the one I bought on the first Hajj, but the one I bought on the second Hajj. Right. Sufyan looked at him and said, poor wretch, he has spoiled he has spoiled 2 pilgrimages by saying this. Actually, in fact, 2 Right, so in fact, there was another story where he said, the guy said, he said, not the first or second, but on the 5th Hajj, the one I bought from the 5th Hajj, you just destroyed 5 pilgrimages by what you just said. And that's the example of that. Right? So why must you say the 5th Hajj? Just say, bring the platter, full stop. Don't say like, the one I got from Hajj. Right, this one I bought on my 5th Hajj. It's just showing off, you went for 5 Hajj. MashaAllah. It's really like, this is another aspect of risk of error to the slightest obedience that is immune to ostentation and vain conceit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigns a value that has no end. Right. So a small act of obedience that is far from any form of action, any form of showing off or pride. On the other hand, the greatest amount of obedience remains without value if this affliction strikes it, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets it right. Right. And that is why the story of one of the ulama, who was seen after his death, and he was asked, right, what profited you in the hereafter, by what did Allah forgive you? And he said, all the talks that I gave in great assemblies, and all of the all the things I have done in great majalis and so on, all of them did not amount to anything next to a few fatihas I taught to some old woman. Like, that was the most sincere of all of his acts. Right? He was on his way to one majlis one time, went by a small village. There was some old woman there, and they asked him to teach them Fatiha. Right? And so he sat down and he taught them Fatiha, and he left. And those few Fatihas, they weighed so much to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, compared to all the talks that he has ever given in his life. So much work that he has done. The Fatihas, of course, those were, mashallah, that he has done. And the Fatihas were more weighty if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just you never know, right? A small, tiny act, right, that was done sincerely. Just just something that you give someone, some time, right, to teach them something, and it was really that nothing insignificant to you, right, but it mattered to them. Right? And then it matters to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because nobody knows about that. And no one knows about that situation, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. And again, entire Hajj can be destroyed. Entire Hajj can be destroyed. Right? If you were to show off right, about the Hajj. May Allah, now like you think of all of your deeds. Ya Allah, may Allah accept from us lah. Ya Allah accept from us, Ya Allah. Another it is reported that Ali, may Allah be well pleased with him, once said, an accepted deed is absolutely is absolutely not of little value. How can an accepted deed be of little value? Right? So how can something be accepted by the one who is great be small? Right? If something is accepted by the one who is great, it is great. Right? By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If something immense is not accepted by the one who is great, then it is negligible. Right? It's subhanallah. It's nothing there. Someone asked An-Nakhai about the reward of a certain act of good work. He replied, if it's accepted, its reward is incalculable. MashaAllah, if it's accepted. According to Wahab, among those before your time, there was a man who worshipped Allah for 70 years, fasting without breaking fast from Saturday to Sunday, from Saturday to Saturday. Then he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to satisfy a need, but it was not satisfied. So he reproached his lower self, saying, I have been ruined by you. Had there been any goodness to your credit, your need would have been fulfilled. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down an angel and said, oh son of Adam, the moment you rebuked your lower self is worth more than your previous worship of 70 years. MashaAllah. Right? I mean, MashaAllah, the worship was worship, yes, but the moment you scold your own nafs, right? You scold your own nafs and you reduce your own nafs, right? So the story is that he worshipped all those years. If you don't understand the story, so for 70 years, this man worshipped. And then at one point, after 70 years, he asked Allah for something, right? And Allah didn't give him. So he turned to himself and he blamed himself. And he said, you see, you are nothing. You're such a wretch of a self. If you were worth anything, Allah would answer your du'as already. But because you're so despicable, he was quoting his own self, right? By that, right? See, your du'as are not accepted, right? So he did that. Right? And then the angel came and the angel revealed to him or said to him that what you just did, right, in reproaching yourself, right, in blaming yourself, was worth more to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the 70 years of worship. Right? That belittling of the self. Right? In a zaman that the people are unable to do that. This is so sensitive now, right? To actually to preach the belittlement of the self is so sensitive because so many people are against it, right? But the self is to be belittled, and the self is to be put in its place. You are to see to the self what it is, right? And that is actually part of our religion, right? But in a way whereby it is a way whereby you continue in your worship because you worship because Allah deserves to be worshipped in spite of you. Right? Allah deserves to be worshipped in spite of you. Right? So you don't worship because that you deserve to be worshipped, or that you don't worship because you deserve to worship. No, you worship because Allah deserves to be worshipped in spite of you. Right? None of us deserve what we do, right? But Allah deserves it, right? Because Allah is the creator. So we continue doing it, right? Even though every single day, right, there is a self-bettering, and there should be a self-bettering. I should be bettering yourself, and it should be, this is like better and there's better, right? So you do it both ways, like you better yourself and you better yourself, right, in both ways. So you kind of like bashing us, self-bashing, in a way, and it is there's a practice amongst the righteous, self-bashing, right? And the more someone lowers themselves, the more they are beloved and high for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But the thing about it is that in our zaman, it goes into self-pity. And self-pity is the problem. And self-pity is a disease that must be removed from our hearts. Self-pity, oh, woe to me, oh, woe is me, look at myself, oh, I'm so this, oh, I'm so that. That is self-pity. Right? That is a rat that people get into. Right? To bash yourself because of the illness or the disease in the self, that is part of our religion. It is. I mean, you will see, that in many of the righteous, that's what they do, right? And they lower themselves, but they don't go into like a self-pitying. They don't go into that, right? But they push themselves, right, on their worship, right? Like Habib Abdullah bin Hussein bin Tahir, right? In his qasida, right, he will say, "Oh our Lord, right, what is the meaning of deeds? And all that we have gained is all gone." And he's the one who was doing 7,000 La ilaha illallah and 7,000 Allah Allah and 7,000 who every single day. He's the one who's doing it. Right? And he's doing, and on top of that, the amount of number of Jews that he would do every single day, and the amount of class he would do every single day. His ibadah is immense. Right? And then he says that what's the meaning about my deeds? My deeds are of nothing. Right? These are of all of extent of showing off. Then they go down into that state. Right? But you don't see any pity. Right? They don't see any pitying of the self. Right? So that's why in Islam there is a training, right, to prevent self-pity. Because self-pity destroys, right? And it paralyzes and it collapses people. It makes them unable, right, to move on. Self-pity. Right. But the criticizing of the self, to criticize yourself is something, right, that is called for. Right? In this region, criticize yourself as much as you want, criticize yourself. Right? But don't pity yourself. Continue, right, in this life and be focused that your focus is Jannah. The intelligent person should reflect on this saying. It is surely a sign of the risk of error that one person labors and toils for 70 years, while another takes a thought of a single moment, and a moment's thought is worth more in Allah's sight than the worship of 70 years, yet you lose this opportunity unnecessarily. By Allah, that is the greatest risk of error. To neglect it is surely the most serious loss. If a mode of conduct is so worthless and so fraught with danger, you must guard against it and avoid it, inshallah. Okay. Let's see. Let me just read through. Because of this kind of consideration, those worshipful servants who have endowed with faculties of discernment have investigated this kind of subtleties. They have concerned themselves with these kinds of secrets in order to become familiar with them. First of all, then to monitor them and take precautions against them in second place. They have not been satisfied with the multiplicity of good deeds in the realm of external appearance. They have said it is a matter of pure intent, not of multiplicity. They have also said a single jewel is better than a pearl. Right? So just to understand, to have quality, quality in your deeds instead of quantity. As for those who have little knowledge and whose interest in this topic is slight, they are ignorant to the deeper meanings and heedless of the faults within their hearts. They are preoccupied with compelling their lower selves to bow and make prostration in ritual prayer, to abstain from food and drink, and so on. They are deluded by a number and frequency of their acts of worship, and do not consider the spiritual benefits and purity of heart involved. The number of walnuts is not sufficient if they contain no kernels, right? So what is only the shell, with nothing inside, has no value lah. Right? That the inward is empty. The erection of roofs is useless if the underlying structure is not firmly established. No one understands realities except for those who manifest true knowledge of Allah, and Allah is a custodian of right guidance by His gracious favor. Right. So basically, always check your inside and never be content with your inside. Never be content. Right. So you go back to istighfar, right? And you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy and His acceptance. Okay. Is there anyone any questions? If there are no questions, stop there for today. You mentioned before that if he do not do sunnah prayer for fear of then avoiding that sunnah prayer itself will So you don't avoid the sunnah prayer itself, but you can pray at home. So the prayer is still done. Oh. The prayer is still done. And so yeah, like for example, if you're going to be there from like Maghrib to Isha and so on. So you have to do your sunnahs there, right? And if you fear riya, right, in yourself, if you can hide yourself, right, for example, and you fear riya, right, then you do it and you istighfar. It's istighfar, right? And in fact, what you can do is a lot of self-bashing, right? So say to yourself that your prayers are also of no worth. Your prayers are you say to yourself, you are in need of his extra raka'ats because those people, they are mashallah. Right? You are the one in desperate need of the extra raka'ats because you are so low in your ibadah. That's basically what I say to myself lah. Right? And that everybody else not praying right now, right? Because they are already mashallah already. Yeah, but your Maghrib has so many flaws and so many breaks and so many, so much problems in your Maghrib that you are in need of this extra rakats and you desperately need it. Right? May Allah help you. I see you bash yourself. Right? So whenever you do extra ibadah, this is from Imam Ghazali, in fact. I say to yourself, you are in need of it. Right? Those who are not doing it because they don't have as many sins as you. Right? And because their good deeds, is so pure. It's a of them. And so pure and so focused on Allah. You're pathetic. So you need to do more. That's how you bash yourself, lah, in a way. Okay, so I'll ask self-pity part again. What is self-pity? Okay, example of self-pity. So when someone has, like, for example, very low self-esteem, right? And they go into a self-pity. They say that, oh, I'm so lousy. I cannot do anything. I'm unable. Like I feel so sad. And then they go into this self, they pity themselves. This is a rut. It's a ruts that they get into. Right. So it's not of strength, but it's of weakness. Right. So there's this and then I'm like this lah, I'm just like this lah. I'm not able lah. Yeah, they victimize themselves. Yeah, they victimize themselves that everyone's against me, and like I don't have the opportunity, and I don't have the ability given to me, and I'm unable. The kind of talk. Right? The kind of talk is paralyzing. Yeah, feeling sorry for the self. Yes, the kind of talk is paralyzing. Right? Self-criticizing is building. It builds. Right. So there's the example of just now of praying extra sunnahs, or doing extra fasts. So you criticize yourself. You say that okay, I need to do more rak'ats, right? Because as you speak to yourself, that your ibadah is really so much to be so much more to be desired, right? And say that you need to make up for a lot of stuff, right, that you have lost in your life. Right? You waste so much time. You this, you that, you whatever. Right? You blame yourself on a lot of things, but it builds. It's a criticism that builds you, right? So it pushes you into doing more and more stuff, right? So because of all of the sins that you accumulate, you better do more rak'ahs right now. And you scold yourself. You better go and start fasting, right? Your nafs will be so strong, that kind of thing. You keep scolding yourself, right? In that, right? So that will be self-criticizing that is building. It pushes you into doing more. Feeling sorry for yourself, basically it paralyzes you. It goes in the form of inability, and that is the thing that some would seek. He would seek protection against min al-ajzi wal kasl. Al-ajz is inability, and kasl is laziness. Every morning, every evening, in Latif, right? A'udhu bika, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika minal Allahumma inni a'udhu bika minal همي والحزن ومن العجز والكسل ومن الجبن والبخل ومن غضب الدين وكره الرجال. And in fact, all of these things, there are some sort protection against from Allah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. None of them are shaitan. They're all not shaitan. They're all problems of the self. Right? Right, is worry and depression. Hazan, sadness, and so depression. And then ajzi, inability. Kasal, laziness. Jubni, cowardice. Right, bukhl, stinginess, ghalb right, being overcome by debt, right, and being overcome by men, right. None of them about shaitan. There's no shaitan in there. Right, the whole thing is just self issues. This is the genius of the Prophet. So that our main problems is just our own selves. It's our biggest problems. We are our own shaitan inside, right, who pulls ourselves down, right, and stops us. Inshallah. Okay, we'll stop there for today. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. الفاتحة أن الله رزقنا منافع وعملا خاصا مستعين من الهدى ويسر به قلب نبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلى أرواح معالمين وشيخنا وزاوي الحق علينا وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الحمد لله رب الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خير.